Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is Panos here from PNOE. We have people joining, so we're just going to give it like a few minutes so that everyone can join, and we'll go from there. So bear with us just a few more minutes. Awesome. I think we can go ahead and get started. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone in today's webinar. I am very glad to have Dr. Kyle Smith as our guest today, who is a renowned health professional in the space of longevity and integrative medicine. And as part of his work, he has been instrumental in developing a novel supplement that enhances AMPK activation. AMPK is an enzyme that has acquired a lot of attention recently as a booster for one's metabolism, both in the sense that it increases a person's metabolic rate, but also in the sense that it enhances fat oxidation. Dr. Kyle Smith got in touch with us a few months ago, and we had the incredible opportunity to work with him in putting together a small validation study for his supplement, whereby we used the PNOE device in a controlled experiment to understand whether his novel supplement can actually have an impact in improving one's metabolism and fat burning efficiency. And we found some incredibly interesting results that we're going to be discussing in today's webinar. So in today's discussion, we're going to talk about AMPK. Dr. Kyle is going to give a little bit of background on what AMPK is and how it can help one's longevity and health overall. And then we're going to have a discussion around different ways of improving AMPK activation in our body, but then also we're going to go into the results of the validation study that we helped put together here at PNOE. So without further delay, I would like to welcome Dr. Kyle Smith, and thank you so much for joining us.
Panos, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited about this presentation, and I'm honored really to be a part of PNOE today. And I say that because I'm just absolutely blown away with the value that this tool can bring into practice for a healthcare practitioner. I've practiced clinical nutrition for more than 30 years, and I wish I had this kind of tool 30 years ago, to be honest with you. The ability to run a baseline test, put a patient on a regimen that has an outcome, and then retesting to show the patient and myself that we've dialed this in. I think this is incredibly valuable. I know as healthcare practitioners, we are marketed right now genetic testing and all kinds of different variables, but this is like where the rubber meets the road. With the PNOE device, you get, it's like the RPM gauge on the dashboard. You get a real picture of metabolism, metabolic rate, and you can affect that. So I want to share with you that I'm honored to be a part of this, and I'm really excited about how the product performed with the PNOE device. And when we get to that, I'm going to pass the baton to Panos because he can explain it a lot better than I can because I'm kind of new to it. But at the end of the day, today, I get to take you through AMPK, what it is, how to bring value to your patients in your practice. And my goal is at the end of this webinar, which should be just 45 minutes to an hour, you're going to have information that you can take right into practice today and positively impact your patients. So specifically, my intention is I'm speaking to healthcare practitioners, fitness enthusiasts, any health coach that's utilizing the PNOE device or considering using the PNOE device in practice. And I'm going to show you how to dial in AMPK to help improve patient outcomes. So with that said, the first thing that we're going to take a look at is what is AMPK? If you're not familiar with it, AMPK, listen to this. This is why we use it in abbreviation. AMPK stands for 5' adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. Wow, that's when you know you need an abbreviation, right? So researchers call this AMPK. You can go into pubmed.gov and do AMPK as a search, AMPK benefits as a search. But what's really unique about this is it's a key enzyme that controls metabolism and metabolic flexibility. And when I say controls metabolism, it literally controls basal metabolic rate, how many calories you're going to burn today. It's also going to determine which kind of calories are burned, fat calories, fatty acids, or glucose, glycogen, or sugar. So at the end of the day, it controls metabolism and it controls metabolic flexibility. Those individuals that can toggle into and out of fat burn really easily, they're metabolically flexible. That means AMPK is high. If AMPK is low, you're actually not metabolically flexible. So we're going to talk today specifically about what you can do in practice to powerfully boost AMPK literally this afternoon when you turn back and you see your clients or your patients. So that said, I want you to see what I've seen, and that is the science behind AMPK. The first article that really got my attention on this subject was published in 2017. And in peer-reviewed science, that's really recent research. And take a look at the title. By the way, take a look at where it was published, Nature, a very reputable peer-reviewed journal. The researchers stated the title of this is AMPK, Guardian of Metabolism and Mitochondrial Homeostasis. Now think the words they're choosing. If you're the guardian over a child's health, you make all their healthcare decisions, right? So it's literally guardian of metabolism. Like I said, it's going to determine metabolic rate and which fuel is burnt in mitochondria. Mitochondrial homeostasis means balance. So it's the guardian of metabolism and balance for mitochondria. And that balance is really important, as we're going to see in this presentation, for healthy aging. Now, if you fast forward to 2021, there's a paper published, AMPK Restoring Metabolic Homeostasis Over Space and Time. This is talking about restoring metabolic balance, which is the promise of what we can do in practice. Take a look at the top left-hand quadrant of your screen. AMPK activation can delay aging. And the right-hand quadrant, role of AMPK-mediated pathways in autophagy in aging. Autophagy is huge. If you have a longevity practice or you're helping older individuals age slower or age more healthier, if you will, AMPK becomes incredibly important because of the word autophagy. Autophagy, by definition, is your body's ability to go through and surveil cells and determine which ones are healthy and which ones are dysfunctioning, and to literally delete or through autophagy, get rid of the dysfunctioning cells. So think of that. The power of your body to go through surveillance and find out which cells are functioning, which ones aren't, and to get rid of the ones that aren't, so your body can go through healthy cellular renewal. And that means if your patients and your clients' nutrition status is good, when the old unhealthy cell gets deleted and the new cell is born in its place, you've got a new healthy, vibrant cell. So at the end of the day, right here, autophagy is cellular renewal, which is incredibly important for healthy aging. There's another part of this, though. If it's getting rid of senescent dysfunctional cells, if your body fails to do that, those cells could become diseased cells. So this is not only healthy aging, but reducing disease risk. That's how AMPK plays a role in healthy aging, is by boosting healthy autophagy. Look at the bottom part of your screen. And this was published just this year, 2024, unveiling the interplay of AMPK and sirtuins and access to brain health, promising targets against aging and neurodegenerative diseases. It looks like we can slow, halt, or reverse age-associated diseases by improving or increasing AMPK. So absolutely incredibly important for our practice. Most of you are going to really relate to this slide. AMPK activation restores healthy muscle mass. This is important because today, the top podcasters and health enthusiasts are telling us that those of us that are otherwise healthy and 60 years of age and getting older, if you cross that magic line of 60 and you've got good quality skeletal muscle mass, you're going to live better, look better, feel better, age slower, and have better health outcomes. So it's important to restore healthy skeletal muscle mass as our metabolism. Problem is today, we see so many patients with sarcopenia, which means technically, if we were to MRI their thigh, we'd see a whole lot of body fat and not a lot of muscle, even though that thigh is pretty large. So at the end of the day, this helps you restore balance in the musculoskeletal system by improving healthy, lean muscular tissue. Next is there's less pain. AMPK activation attenuates inflammatory pain through inhibiting NF-kappa B activation. These researchers stated our findings provide novel mechanisms through which AMPK activation reduces inflammatory pain. AMPK activation attenuates pain by reducing mitochondrial dysfunction mediated neuroinflammation. And we are going to talk about mitochondrial function as being the key for healthy aging in just a moment. But the point is, you've got clients or patients that they could buy a $4,000 mattress and still wake up with shoulder pain, hip pain, back pain, chronic pain. You've got to take a look at amplifying AMPK to decrease inflammation, to decrease inflammatory pain. This is so important. I created this big wheel to show you all the things AMPK does per science up to today in 2024. This has to do with metabolism and now healthy insulin function, which has everything to do with AMPK function. So first, AMPK boosts metabolism. It can theoretically restore metabolism of an older, otherwise healthy individual like me back to what I had when I was in my 20s and my 30s. The next one is it engages mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the birth and formation of new healthy mitochondria. And we are going to dive into that. It also decreases glucose synthesis and it activates your immune system by supporting healthy T and B cell function, which improves your robust immune response to viruses. In addition to that, it improves blood flow, specifically peripheral blood flow, and it improves glucose uptake, which means it gets it out of the blood and into the cells where it belongs. It improves fatty acid oxidation, which means while it improves metabolism, it enhances your body's rate of fat burn. And in addition to that, it decreases cytokine and inflammatory pathways across your entire body. Every organ, gland, tissue, and system can positively respond to less inflammation. And then it decreases fatty acid synthesis. And then finally, there's this beautiful, really unique relationship between sirtuins, which are healthy aging signals that wash across your genes with positive genetic messages. There's this amazing relationship between sirtuins and autophagy in a partnership with AMPK. So if you take a look at this, it's really an amazing enzyme. It is the guardian of metabolism, as you can see. So what about mitochondria? This is a huge subject for healthy aging. The mitochondria are the little tiny organelles within our cells that produce energy. They basically convert all the calories we're consuming, no matter what kind of calorie it is, into energy, and that energy is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Interesting thing, every organ, gland, tissue, and system in the human body runs on ATP except for one exception. And what is that? Red blood cells. So this is critical for your health and your vitality. Your brain is loaded with mitochondria and is hungry for fuel. Your liver loaded with mitochondria and hungry for fuel. At the end of the day, the fuel is ATP and ATP runs everything. So here's the deal. It's common, I don't want to say normal because it doesn't happen in every case, but it's common that from the decade of 30 to 40 to 50 to 60, as an individual ages, mitochondrial function goes down by decreasing either the population or the function or both. This is called mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's really the core theory of how the body ages. So the idea is if we can keep mitochondrial populations high and healthy, we can slow the process of aging, and this is why. If your brain and body has plenty of ATP, let's talk about your brain. If your brain has plenty of ATP, it can run through cellular house cleaning, which would mean taking in nutrients, utilizing them, getting rid of waste products, and making neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is associated with focus, concentration, mood, memory, mental energy, and mental performance, kind of important. Well, at the end of the day, it takes energy to produce neurotransmitters and to go through cellular house cleaning. So imagine this. What if at your 30, you had plenty of mitochondria, but when you're otherwise healthy and 60, you had less? That means there's less energy to go through cellular house cleaning. And that, of course, accelerates aging. So keeping mitochondrial populations healthy, key. Let me give you a little visual example that I give patients, and hopefully you can too, if you'd like to. I think it's a little funny. I hope it is. Imagine a big swimming pool. You got this huge swimming pool. On one end of the pool are otherwise healthy 60-year-olds like me sitting in the pool. And on the other end of the pool, there's otherwise healthy 22-year-olds or college age. Is there a difference in energy between the two sides of the pool? My side of the pool, all my friends are probably sitting there with floaty devices and drinks, trying to keep pool water out of our drinks. And on the opposite side, the kids are jumping in the pool, out of the pool, on the diving board, into the pool, out of the pool, splashing, playing, right? There's a difference in energy. That difference is ATP. So as clinicians, your clients or your patients, if you can restore healthy mitochondrial function, you can literally restore health. Take a look at the titles of these books to see how important mitochondria are. So here's the amazing thing. It's called bioenergetics, bioenergy. On average, there are 37.2 trillion cells in the human body. The average human brain has about 100 billion neurons or nerve cells and many more glial cells, which serve to support and protect the neurons. Brain cells and liver cells have on average 1,000 to 2,000 mitochondria per cell. Now pause on that. That means right now in this webinar, there's some of you, some of us that have a lot more mitochondria than others. And if you've got a lot more, you've got more ATP, you've got more metabolism, you've got more ATP to build neurotransmitters for focus, concentration, and memory. So in your practice with your patients or clients, there's a huge variability in mitochondria, and anything you can do to enhance mitochondrial function will improve patient outcomes. Bottom right-hand quadrant of your screen, mitochondrial biogenesis is the formation of new healthy mitochondria. And science says natural ingredients like pomegranate, for example, can enhance mitochondrial biogenesis. Let me say that again. Pomegranate. You can supply pomegranate to your patients in the capsule without the sugar, and the polyphenols in the pomegranate will actually enhance and improve the formation of new healthy mitochondria. So dietarily in our diet, we can direct this. In the nutrients we take, we can direct this. And as you're going to see, through exercise, we can improve and direct mitochondrial biogenesis. Last bullet on the left-hand quadrant of your screen, a human will typically use up his or her body weight of ATP over the course of a day. How does that work? Now think of this. I'm saying your body generates its weight in ATP every day, yet you don't gain any weight. How does that happen? This amazing molecule is regenerated down into the millionths of a second, over 1,500 times before it's spent. And then with a little activity on your biochemistry, it can be regenerated. ATP is absolutely amazing. Our bodies are absolutely amazing, but it all comes back to energetics or bioenergetics. So let's take a look at why people have low AMPK. Top of your page, AMPK decreases with age. Now, I think it decreases while we're aging because of the 2 points at the bottom part of your screen that we're going to get to. But at the end of the day, at about 30 years of age, AMPK is typically higher than it is at 40, higher than it is at 50, higher than it is at 60. There's a decline in AMPK. We're going to talk about that in a second. The second factor is genetics. Some people are born with a genetic predisposition to high AMPK. These are people in your life and in your practice that they seem like they can eat anything and they never gain weight. And the opposite side, some people are born with a genetic predisposition to poor AMPK function, which means it seems like they can just walk by food and gain weight, or eat a saltine cracker, drink a glass of water and gain a pound, right? The equation doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. I've seen patients do everything right as you have and still not lose weight. Well, interestingly, the genetic predisposition to poor AMPK function is actually a survivor gene, a survival gene. So every person with a slow metabolism, they were slated for survival. And this is why. If you could get in a time machine and go back just 1,000 years, 2,000 years in our family trees, if your family or your community failed to store enough food for a long winter, let's say winter was a lot harsher and longer than expected, and the food ran out, the skinny little human with six-pack abs didn't make it through the famine. But the individual that was plump like a squirrel before winter, right? They had plenty of body fat as an energy source to make it through the lack of food or the famine. So at the end of the day, this was a genetic predisposition to survival. But when it meets our modern era of processed foods, simple carbohydrates, soda pops with 34 grams of sugar. Take a look at the bottom right-hand quadrant of your screen. A diet high in sugar or anything that spikes insulin will take out AMPK, and these individuals are more sensitive to others to that. Next is lack of intense exercise. How many people walk into your practice, your clients or patients, that are exercising with intensity that are 40, 50, 60 years of age? Something that we did when we were young for sure, right? But it trails off. And the bottom line is, here's a key. This is a nutritional pearl. Are you ready? Rapid depletion of ATP boosts AMPK. We're going to talk about that more in a second, but intense exercise, not long duration, but intense exercise to exhaustion will boost AMPK. But how many patients and clients are doing that? Left-hand quadrant of your screen, chemicals, drugs, alcohol, all destroy AMPK. So if you've got a patient or an individual with a genetic predisposition to poor AMPK function, a diet high in refined carbohydrates and processed foods, not exercising, and drinking alcohol every night, they have no way to basically enhance metabolism and burn that body fat. So in men, top of the page, increasing AMPK improves insulin sensitivity. Interestingly, that decreases blood insulin or your insulin response. And that, look at this closely, increases testosterone, decreases chronic pain, and decreases inflammation. Interestingly, now higher testosterone improves insulin sensitivity, and you have a positive feed-forward loop that starts with boosting AMPK. This is huge for your practice if you don't already know it. Insulin is a major testosterone switch. It will turn testosterone off. Specifically, the insulin secretion rate and fasting plasma insulin concentration are inversely proportional to serum testosterone concentrations, meaning high insulin levels are associated with low testosterone and low insulin is associated with high testosterone. So anything that spikes insulin repeatedly will drop testosterone. Young men have a quick glycemic response. They could eat a whole pizza, drink a liter of soda pop. Their blood sugar is going to go up and it's going to be down and normal in about an hour. But an older individual, if you're looking at insulin and not glucose, could have an exaggerated insulin response, and that insulin can stay high for hours. That's a switch that turns testosterone off. It's also a metabolic switch. So take a look at the left-hand quadrant of your screen. Low AMPK, or rather high insulin. Let me start over. High insulin produces low AMPK. They're inversely proportional, like a seesaw. If insulin goes up, AMPK goes down. Now, as a clinician, I'm telling you, your diet is directing AMPK and insulin right now. If insulin goes up, AMPK goes down. Bottom left-hand quadrant of your screen, hyperinsulinemia, which means too much insulin all the time floating around in the blood, that decreases mitochondrial biogenesis. And on the right-hand quadrant of your screen, high AMPK decreases insulin. So there's an inverse relationship here. If you boost AMPK, you drop insulin by improving insulin sensitivity. But if insulin goes up, AMPK goes down. So now this is a seesaw, right? It's a lever that you can flip in practice to improve your patient's health outcomes. Hyperinsulinemia, which again means too much insulin in the blood, accelerates aging. Take a look at the first bullet, and this should be stunning to you if you don't know it. Nutritionally driven insulin exposure controls the rate of mammalian aging. Yikes, full stop. What? My diet controls the rate of aging? That's crazy. Now, the really cool thing is, as you know, all of this can be measured with the PNOE device based on metabolic rate, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Look at the next bullet. In one recent study, half of the 4,485 subjects showed hyperinsulinemia despite normal glucose clearance, suggesting that hyperinsulinemia likely occurs as a silent disease in a substantial proportion of an otherwise healthy population. Here's what this means. Your patient may know their glucose level because every year their doctor is looking at fasting blood glucose with their normal physical exam, but nobody's looking at insulin. Insulin, it could take 7 times more insulin than normal to produce a normal fasting glucose. It turns out, scientists are telling us, insulin can go up a decade or decades before blood glucose goes up. And when blood glucose goes up, the horse is out of the barn, meaning it's a lot easier to bring insulin down well before fasting glucose goes up. And there's a lot you can do as a clinician to positively affect that. Now, the crazy thing is at directlabs.com here in the United States. For $26, you can look at fasting insulin. Yet, I constantly see nobody's looking for it. I'm telling you, you want to look at fasting insulin because there's so much you can do with diet, exercise, and nutrition to bring that down. 93% of American adults are metabolically unhealthy. They have high insulin way before they have high fasting glucose. Just 7% have good metabolic health. 1 in 3 Americans already have metabolic syndrome, which is a cluster of problems associated with blood glucose, insulin, and diabetes, and most don't know it, meaning 1 in 3 are headed straight towards diabetes, and they have no clue they're headed straight to diabetes right now in the United States. That's how important this is. So bottom part of your screen, only 7% of Americans have a good cardiometabolic health. That's how important it is to really measure this with the PNOE device. Put a person on a lifestyle regimen, including nutrition and diet, that can fix the problem, and then retest to show the patient and you that you've dialed in a regimen that really works for them. Now, in women, this is amazing. In women, high insulin is linked to many menopausal symptoms, especially changes in body composition like weight gain, fat gain, hot flashes, fatigue, and muscle loss. How does this work? At the top of your screen, increasing AMPK improves insulin sensitivity, just like in men. That decreases menopausal symptoms. There's a dance between menopausal symptoms and insulin. You can see this with a continuous blood glucose monitor. Don't need to get one. It's just there. When insulin goes up, menopausal symptoms go up. When you decrease menopause symptoms and decrease insulin, left-hand quadrant of your screen, that decreases chronic pain and inflammation in those women. That improves sleep and metabolism because they sleep better. They're not tossing and turning. And that increases AMPK, and you have a positive feed-forward loop now. So here's the key. And this is the part where I knew I could bring value to you as a clinician in your practice. You can take this right into your practice this afternoon. There are 3 ways to increase AMPK in your otherwise healthy patients and for yourself. The first one is underlined in bold because it's the biggest trigger. It's exercise. Exercise is your best way to boost AMPK, but there's a caveat. Any form of exercise won't do it. Now, it's my opinion that any form of exercise is good for the brain and the body. Just walking after dinner, right? Walking the dog with your wife for 30 minutes after dinner is going to be good for your cardiometabolic health. But if our goal is to boost AMPK, it has to be exercise with intensity to exhaustion. Remember, rapid depletion of AMPK boosts, rapid depletion of ATP boosts AMPK. So what is rapid depletion of ATP? It is high intensity interval training, warming up, having your patient work out to exhaustion if they're healthy enough to do that, and building up to being healthy enough to do that. But they work out to exhaustion, then they take a break and engage in another bout. It's intensity. Now, the wild thing is science says you only have to work out to exhaustion once. It could be weightlifting. It could be resistance training. It could be aerobically. But the key is a burst of exercise that goes to complete depletion or energy depletion or exhaustion. That's going to trigger AMPK stronger than anything else. So, of course, we all know there's a combination now of exercise to do with our patients between aerobics and weightlifting or resistance training. But if you want to boost AMPK with exercise, it has to be intensity in some way, shape, or form. You pick how to get the patient to that. So exercise is your biggest trigger to boost AMPK. Now, think of all the benefits associated with exercise that are anti-aging. They come from AMPK activation. Next is fasting. Fasting, intermittent fasting, is a really good way to boost AMPK, but there's a caveat here. If your patient has a genetic predisposition to poor AMPK function, fasting is almost torture for them. And if you're metabolically flexible, you can't relate. And what I'm saying is, when their caloric depletion goes out, they have incredible cravings for carbohydrates. They're not metabolically flexible. Their body keeps giving them appetite signals to eat more, to eat more, to eat more. And you cannot relate to that if you're metabolically flexible. So I'm saying fasting is another way in an otherwise healthy individual to boost AMPK, but it can be a little bit hard for your patients if they're not metabolically flexible. So getting them into metabolic flexibility, which exercise can help to do, will help improve insulin sensitivity and improve their ability to toggle into fat burn, out of fat burn, into carb burn, out of carb burn as they need to. Now, the third way is exercise and fasting mimetics. The word mimetics means mimickers. These are phytonutrients in our diet, like pomegranate extract, that when you consume them in the right quantity, your body thinks you just exercised or thinks you just fasted. meaning it produces an AMPK response like you just exercised or an AMPK response like you just fasted. These are called fasting mimetics. You can look this up at pubmed.gov. They're phytonutrients, natural polyphenols and ingredients, flavonoids, polyphenols and ingredients in plants. So there's three ways basically to boost AMPK: exercise, fasting, and exercise and fasting mimetics. I prefer to make sure a patient's doing all three, because now you have three different signal modifiers to boost AMPK, or at least two. Have them do exercise in the exercise and fasting mimetics, and then they have two independent signals every day of boosting AMPK. But of course, all three are best. So now imagine this. What I did is I took this science and I flipped it into a nutritional supplement. I asked the question, what are the best AMPK activators? The ones that have been studied the most. And I came up with 7 ingredients. Now, this is my personal list. From my perspective, in 30 years of practice, these are the ingredients I believe are important: quercetin, curcumin, berberine, resveratrol, green tea, L-theanine, moringa leaf, and pomegranate that I've mentioned a couple of times in this presentation. So the bottom line is I chose 7 phytonutrient superstars based on pubmed.gov for the best AMPK activators, the best fasting and exercise mimetics. I combined them into a liposomal product. Now, liposomes are basically phosphatidylcholine. In this case, phosphatidylcholine derived from sunflower seeds. The phosphatidylcholine, almost on a molecular level, wraps around these active phytonutrients and protects them from digestion and enhances absorption. So they go in the lymphatic system or they go right into the bloodstream. By doing this, you can use less of the phytonutrient and get more of it into the bloodstream. In fact, liposomes have been shown to improve absorption by 1,000% or even 10x, which is massive, right? So at the end of the day, this absorption varies from phytonutrient to phytonutrient, but we know that liposomes can enhance phytonutrient absorption. So I put the phytonutrients in a liposomal matrix, and we combined it into a product that we call TRIM, 𝐬𝐻 TRIM. The word 𝐬𝐻 is Italian for to have, so to have TRIM is what we've got. This product is provided in a 30-count gusseted bag. Inside this gusseted bag are 30 single servings of liquid, 15 milliliters per serving, that are exactly the phytonutrient matrix that I came up with from PubMed, the 7 phytonutrient superstars mixed into a liposomal matrix. It's done this way so a patient can't goof up dosing or daily intake. You just cut the top or rip the top, pour it into a glass of water, stir it and drink it, and you've delivered all of these ingredients in a liquid liposomal matrix right into the digestive system, now into the bloodstream. So at the end of the day, we did liquids because currently with technology, it's the only way to get these ingredients into liposomes and keep the daily intake low, if that makes sense. It's really hard to go to capsules. It would be basically a 12 capsule dose in one pack. So basically 1 pack a day or 2 packs a day, and you're consuming the exercise and fasting mimetics that PubMed says can enhance and support healthy metabolism. So ultimately, these benefits of this ingredient, this product, the phytonutrient benefits are it improves fat metabolism, promotes metabolic flexibility, aids in a healthy inflammatory response, improves insulin sensitivity, and supports healthy blood sugar and energy levels. And also it helps in daily detoxification. So I'm super proud of this product and excited the fact that we delivered it to PNOE for them to do an independent third-party evaluation to see what they found themselves with the PNOE device. And what's brilliant and beautiful is you can literally measure a metabolic shift with TRIM. So this takes us into the PNOE information. This is the testing procedure and the protocol. If you don't mind, Panos, I'm going to pass this to you because you are the expert in this category to tell our listeners and viewers how the product responded with the PNOE testing pre and post.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you so much for this incredibly insightful presentation around AMPK. I think a lot of people here may have heard of AMPK, but it's not very common that you see such a great deep dive into, what does it do as an enzyme and what are the different things that, it impacts. And truly, to your point raised before, AMPK sits at the very center of mitochondrial and metabolic fitness. And this is why when we started the process, we were very excited about seeing positive results, which we did. The process we followed was pretty much, what you would expect when doing study on a basic study on a supplement of that nature. So what we did is we took 12 subjects. We measured them at baseline condition, first thing in the morning, fully fasted, and we did a resting and exercise test on them. And then we administered the specified dose of Avertrim as instructed by Dr. Kyle. And then after a certain period of time, I think it was like 30 minutes, we retested these people with the resting and exercise test. And we looked primarily into the shift that would occur in someone's metabolism, primarily looking into the resting and active respiratory exchange ratio. The respiratory exchange ratio is the balance between CO2 and O2 in your exhaled breath. And the reason why we looked primarily into RER is because this is the marker that identifies the breakdown between fats and carbohydrates in your metabolic activity. So, we know from molecular biology that every time a molecule of carbohydrate is metabolized, there's a specific ratio between the O2 that goes in and the CO2 that's being produced. And then, we know the same ratio for the fat molecule. Specifically, for the fat molecule, the ratio is 0.7. For the carbohydrate molecule is 1. That means that if you measure the collective balance of O2 and CO2 in your exhaled breath, you are measuring the combined effect of the metabolic activity across all the different cells in your body. I'm just explaining the concept of indirect calorimetry. This is something that, has been around for about 100 years, so it's really nothing new. But all in all, what we saw is that the respiratory exchange ratio significantly shifted downwards. And that is pretty much, an indication that we were able to get people into a better fat burning state. And that was done, pretty consistently. And then if you go into the next slide, what was also very important to note was that, there was a significant shift in people's fat max. So what we showed earlier is the respiratory exchange ratio and therefore fat burning efficiency during resting state. But as I said, we also tested people during exercise state, where you could also get a pretty good understanding of someone's fat burning efficiency. As a matter of fact, one would say it's additive information to the resting test, because you're now testing one's ability to maintain fat oxidation in the presence of increased exercise intensity. And so by looking into how your fat and carbohydrate oxidation changes from a resting state to an exercise to full on all out effort, you are able to determine the extent to which a person is able to maintain fat oxidation. And the longer you can maintain fat oxidation, the more mitochondria you have, and therefore the more metabolically healthy you are, based on everything that we discussed so far. And so what we typically see in people that are very metabolically impaired is that their fat oxidation just goes up a little bit and then plummets very early on during the exercise test, and just stays almost down to zero for the remainder of the test. Vice versa, if you test someone who's like a triathlete, someone who's like incredibly metabolically healthy, you're going to see that fat oxidation increases and it peaks at some point and then like very gradually goes down. And you can see that for most of the exercise intensity spectrum, the person is actually, tapping onto fat reserves quite a bit, meaning that a very good chunk of the calories is coming from fats versus carbohydrates. And this is, again, indicative of mitochondrial fitness, because the more mitochondria you have, the more oxygen you can bring into the cell. And since fat is a molecule that always requires oxygen to be burned, the more fat the person is going to burn. And what I think was the most significant and indicative change of this supplement was that people's crossover point, which is the point where fat oxidation meets carbohydrate oxidation, was pushed to the right, meaning that it occurred at a greater exercise intensity. And this is of incredible importance because it showed that people were able to now rely more on their fat reserves and oxidize more fat versus carbohydrates during their exercise, which is, as I said, a marker of having more mitochondria in their system. It's very rare that you see such drastic changes, and I think it's certainly a great validation for this product. Obviously, that was just 12 subjects. We're looking to do a lot more validation with this product, but I think this is a very promising first start.
Yes, and the thing that I love about this as a clinician, and I know we're speaking to clinicians, and that's why I'm saying this, is to me this empowers an individual, a patient or a client to exercise, and it gives them a real reason to. Meaning clearly they're getting more out of the exercise session now in the presence of these phytonutrients than they would otherwise. Originally when you came back, you said this was, quote, stunning. And that word stuck in my mind because that's a stunning shift in crossover. That is, forever, haven't we been trying to get patients to exercise more, right? Isn't, in my experience, is almost always the hardest thing to do. So 100%. I got otherwise healthy. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Telling people that, you're going to get a lot more out of your exercise because your cells are now primed to use a lot more fat than they would previously do means you're getting a much bigger bang for the buck for every minute of exercise you're putting in. And so, yeah, to your point, that in and of itself is, a great motivation for people to start exercising.
Yeah, I love that because it's the thing that if I have an otherwise healthy 50-year-old male that's overweight, getting him to exercise every day, it's always, I don't have time, I don't have this. Well, you don't have to have a lot of time, right? Now you can get a lot more out of that exercise session. You've just got to do it, just got to move. And to me, this gives them an excuse to move or it empowers them, if you will, to move because now they're getting more out of it than they would without it. So 100%. To me, this was the pleasant surprise because it supports what we want to do in practice with our patients, and that is get them into a fitness regimen. And now we've given them quite a bit of an excuse to get into a fitness regimen. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. So that was pretty much everything on our end. I know we covered a lot of information and we have some time ahead of us, so we would like to open it up to questions.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions, you can use the chat and we can start by answering them. Oh, I think we already have some. I think the first one is for you, Dr. Kyle.
Yes.
I don't know if you can access them. There's a Q&A button at the.
Is it in the chat?
Or in the chat, like if you, there's a ribbon at the bottom, and there's a tile that says Q&A.
All right. Okay, I have chat, but I don't see anything.
Okay, maybe I'm the only one seeing them. I'm just gonna head and read them out, and we can take them one by one. First one is, does adrenal fatigue and AMPK correlate? Any thoughts would be greatly appreciated.
I'm going to tell you that I'm not an expert in that category, but I believe you will find that they will correlate. So many people today have adrenal fatigue, and adrenal fatigue, as we know, is going to be caused by stress. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and interestingly, if cortisol is high, insulin is high because insulin sensitivity is low. So imagine this, if a patient is chronically stressed and cortisol keeps going up, insulin keeps going up, that decreases AMPK. So to me, the trigger is, as shown in this presentation, to get to healthy adrenal function is to push AMPK up, but then that will push insulin down by improving insulin sensitivity. And that's your pathway to more energy. If in fact, they're adrenally fatigued, and that was caused by cortisol being up chronically. That also lets you know that mitochondrial biogenesis has decreased because every time insulin is spiked, that goes down. So again, mitochondrial population or function go down, their total body energy, which is really fatigue, is going to go up. So I would have to say this is an entry in there to help push adrenal fatigue down and improve by improving AMPK function.
And just, a little bit of like overarching thoughts on our end. We've seen a lot of stuff in the literature and we've been in the space for quite some time now. Since AMPK is such a central mechanism to a person's overall metabolism, it only stands to reason that any possible function in the body is going to be improved to some extent if you
Yes.
improve AMPK activation. So you should expect such improvements. Next question: any research on gynostemma, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, extract increasing AMPK?
Well, now, interestingly, I am familiar with that ingredient, and it is a star at improving glucose sensitivity or insulin sensitivity and decreasing glucose. So while it's not really an AMPK activator, you can get to better AMPK by improving blood glucose and improving insulin levels.
Okay, cool. Next one: when we see a patient in late 30s who's active all day, thin, action-oriented, then tired in the afternoons, needs to nap after food, even though it may seem their AMPK is high, from always having ability to eat, consume lots without gaining weight, would this person possibly be low in AMPK? So just to rephrase the question, person who's like very active, thin, whatever, but then they get this, downfall towards like, late afternoon. There's this afternoon slump, but this slump is like perhaps more pronounced in this person than others. In your experience, is this a sign of AMPK impairment?
Okay. From my perspective, I would try the AMPK activating ingredients in the afternoon when they are tired because they are energizing. Number one, but I would also clinically look for other reasons why they may be depleted. And such a common one today is magnesium depletion. If they're abusing coffee and stimulants in the morning, they probably have low blood magnesium, and just raising magnesium can help a whole lot with energy levels. And by the way, improve sleep quality. And by improving sleep quality, help with energy the next day. So I would look at, the possible nutrition. I want to say deficiencies, but not classic deficiencies like suboptimal consumption of certain nutrients like B vitamins, and then magnesium for that individual, and see if that doesn't make a positive impact. And then also after that, dive in to see if there's any kind of exposures occupationally maybe that's causing them to be fatigued.
Awesome, yeah. Would infrared sauna raise AMPK?
Yes, that's a really good point. Infrared sauna raises AMPK, and so does cold water immersion. As a matter of fact, cold water immersion is a star at boosting AMPK. So
would you say more so than infrared saunas? Like, would you rank?
The cold water is more powerful.
Cold water
yes.
immersion. Okay, more powerful. I see. Okay, awesome.
And by the way, I'm a fan of both, but I think the benefits of the cold water immersion are bigger. You know what I mean? Because it squashes whole body inflammation very quickly. It activates AMPK, probably one of the biggest signal modifiers. Should have added that to the presentation, cold water immersion. Lots of individuals are either not equipped to do it or not willing to. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, for those of us that are willing to jump into ice bath for about 10 minutes a day, that is a huge way to turn on fat burn, improve metabolism, and definitely boost AMPK.
This is something that we also see, like when you conduct a pre and post metabolic test with PNOE after exposing someone to, cold water and, cold exposure in general, you see an improvement in RER, so fat burning efficiency. Can you talk about the impact of sauna and steam on AMPK? I think we covered that. It has a positive effect.
Yes.
Is the product available in the UK? Speaking on behalf of PNOE, yes, it is available in the UK. What about your product? Is it available in the UK currently?
It is not. And sadly, it's only available right now in the United States.
Okay. This will also be made available recording. Yes. Thank you for your kind words, Jason. For your metabolic testing, are you using bikes, rowers, etc.? For the resting test, you just need a comfortable recliner chair or just a mat. For the exercise test, we recommend using a treadmill or a stationary bicycle, but you can also use other types of cardio equipment, such as rowers, air bikes, etc. What was the name of the lab you use for insulin testing? You said Quest?
It is directlabs.com.
Directlabs.com. Okay.
And by the way, they work through Quest, LabCorp, and a whole affiliate. There's an affiliate network of phlebotomists. But the bottom line is their insulin test is literally $26. So it's just only inconvenient to go to the local phlebotomy station to get your blood pulled. Every one of us need to know our fasting insulin levels because it can sneak up. And honestly, one of the biggest lectures I give to chiropractors and medical doctors and DOs has to do with the fact that if insulin's high, testosterone's low, and they don't know that insulin's high because they're not looking at it. Blood
100%.
glucose is not an indicator of insulin because you don't know how much insulin it took to get to the normal blood glucose level. Looking at that now empowers you to do all kinds of lifestyle improvements like boosting AMPK. And when AMPK goes up, insulin goes down, testosterone goes back up.
Next one, would this help athletic performance while on a bike, for instance? If so, how long to boost? Something's off here. Anyways, well, since AMPK basically triggers ATP production, then yes, Dr. Kyle should expect to see improvements in athletic performance after consuming something or doing something, right? That is going to improve AMPK activation, right?
Yes, I would expect that. Now, in athletes, usually their AMPK is already toned and honed in, quite frankly, because of their lifestyle, diet, et cetera. So you're going to have probably a less bump there for them than you would an individual that's just getting into exercise. But at the end of the day, I would expect to see these phytonutrients enhance performance in some way. But it may be more limited in athletes than it is in your average Joe that's just getting into an exercise regimen. And to me, that was what was really impressive with the crossover, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
The individual that's less trained stays in fat loss longer.
There's always diminishing return, right? So the more fit and healthy the person becomes, the harder it is to continue to push the curve up and to the right. When we're starting with someone who's like, in a very bad state, you can do very little and produce like very big changes. This is the beauty of the human body, I guess. Can you explain how the test participants were selected? Well, there was we have all this information in the white paper we put out, so we're going to be sharing that. You can see all this information there. I see PNOY as an affiliate link for this. I would like to discuss carrying this in my supplement. Awesome. Well, we're going to share a meeting link with everyone, just so that they can get an opportunity to get in touch with our team, where they can, first of all, discuss how they can bring PNOE into their business. Right now, we're giving a exclusive offer that pretty much gives you 0% down and no payments for the first 6 months. And as part of that, you can also start to promote this supplement into your practice. Do you have a program for corporate trainers offering their corporate clients? Yes, we do. We're going to be sharing the link. Please use the link to schedule some time with one of our account executives, and they can walk you through the different options. Asking to adding PNOE trim into client-patient workflow in our wellness center. I guess, same answer. I don't know, Maria, if you can maybe share the link in the chat so that people can start booking calls. What are your thoughts on risks of adding ActiveView to max testing in people who have had mRNA vax and do not regularly push to high intensity and failure? Well, that begs a broader question of how safe it is for someone to exercise at high intensities if they've gone through some sort of like medical procedure or whatnot, what we always tell our affiliates to do is make sure that there's clearance from a doctor and that they can exercise in high intensities if they can, then there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to perform a VO2 max test. What is the advantage of using PNOE versus a weight scale? Yeah, so it is a vastly different apparatus. Like one measures a person's metabolism, the other one measures a person's body weight. PNOE delivers 23 biomarkers that relate to 5 different systems of your biology: cells, heart, lungs, nervous system, and much more. So yeah, it's really not, comparable to a weight scale. How about non-infrared saunas and steam rooms? Like, would these have an effect on AMPK? Based on what we said, my guess is yes, they should have a positive impact on AMPK. How soon after AMPK supplementation should a client begin their high intensity workouts? Well, we tested people about 30 minutes after they consumed um, this specific supplement. But I think part of the future investigation that we should do is to see how long the effect lasts, right? And obviously, as I said earlier, there's great promising initial results, but there is much more work to be done to fully understand the scope and the impact of this supplement into the human body. And so I can just tell you what we did in the validation study, but I think stay tuned for more information about periodization, like what is the optimal interval for waiting until you start engaging into some sort of exercise and whatnot. Your client does overuse caffeine. What would the required intensity for exercise need to be? Raise heart rate for AMPK activation, running good, swimming 3 times a week. I guess, there's more work to be done to answer these questions. With the PNOE after the initial test, are you retesting every week or after several months? Depends on how acute the intervention is. So if we're taking someone and we are, really pushing them and making very serious changes in their lifestyle, then you can expect to see results in 30 days. But typically what we recommend is a retesting interval of, say, 2 to 3 months. And that was pretty much all the questions we got. I'm not sure if, oh yeah. So my team here posted the link for you guys to start booking calls. As I said, you book through this call, you're eligible for the offer that I described. And then also you can get a lot more context into, how you can provide and promote this supplement through your practice. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Dr. Kyle, I would like to thank you so much for joining us today and, providing all these incredible insights into AMPK. I thought that I knew a lot of things about AMPK, but turns out that I didn't. So thank you for enlightening me as well. This session is recorded, so it is going to exist on our YouTube channel. So if you guys know anyone who may be interested in what we discussed today, please feel free to forward the URL that is going to be public very soon. And that was pretty much everything on my end. Dr. Kyle, I don't know if you have any closing remarks and thoughts.
My closing remarks are, I'm very thankful, very grateful for the time that you gave me with your audience today. I could not be more impressed with the PNOE device and how that empowers healthcare practitioners, like I said, to really dial in their regimen and know that they're affecting their patients in real time. What an amazing tool, because everyone is so genetically different and everyone is going to perform metabolically different. And you're measuring metabolism, which to me is where the rubber meets the road. It lets you see exactly if you've dialed this in properly. And if not, you can reapproach with the patient to make sure you're helping them produce a positive health outcome. So I have the greatest respect for what you and your team do with this device. And I think you're really in contribution to our profession, all integrative practitioners that are looking for nutritional ways or positive ways to, improve patient outcomes. So thank you for letting me be a part today. And guys, thank you so much for your attention and hanging on during the entire presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words and your time, Dr. Kyle. And thanks everyone for participating. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Bye, everyone.